welcome to An Outside View. I'm your host, Dick Zaccaro, and joining me tonight is Bob Ford and Paul Beckner, two guests that we've had on many times and also co-hosts. And in the future, I have one more show in December that will have a festive audience, and we may have a special guest appearance by Santa Claus for the kids next month, and that'll be my sign-off. And Paul Beckner has expressed a desire and interest to take over the show, and I'm sure he'll have us on, Bob, as maybe guests in the future, and who knows what the show's name will be. I guarantee you the topics will be rather interesting with Mr. Beckner, as we all know, otherwise known as Mr. Bohica by us close in the circles. And speaking about Bohica, we urge you all to go to City Hall, I believe, on Pearl Harbor Day, Bob. You're a veteran. December 7th, an infamous day, right?
Yep.
And it's also the day that you can go down and watch the city councilors play double jeopardy with our CFO on the tax factor. So they've already voted. For you people, by the way, who don't realize this, the mayor submitted a budget back in June that the council voted on that calls for a full 2.5% tax increase and maybe a $13 million override on Proposition 2.5. They'll have to go out in the form of a referendum and have the people vote on it before Mr. Condon, our CFO, certifies $13 million for the water department and repairs to the infrastructure and a copying machine. So it's always an interesting round robin. They play games for about an hour and a half. We've all sat through there before.
Yeah, many times.
And the tax factor, what the tax factor means, folks, is how they're going to assess the 2.5% tax increase. What percentage will be assigned to commercial taxes, which is already sky high, $33 per thousand, and how much will be assigned to residential, which is already $18 per thousand, which is also high compared to other communities. And then they go back and forth, and they have a recess, and then finally, they ultimately, 99% of the time, Mr. Condon comes up. I have a suggestion, councilors. Here's the tax factor I think that'll work. Ultimately, they go by what he suggests. So before we get into that, let's come up with the recent election. How about your thoughts on the people that got elected, including state senator, newly elected state senator Mike Brady, that took the vacant seat left by Tommy Kennedy when he passed on, and also the mayor Carpenter got reelected. And with all the council races, I believe we have 3 new councilors. We have a young man that we just had on our show, Jack Lally.
Jack
one of
Lally,
the
yeah.
youngest city elected officials in the history of the Commonwealth of Mass, 18 years old. He got elected in Ward 6, where Michelle Dubois, Representative Dubois, bowed out because she was elected as a rep and served a remaining term out. Then we have a new council that was a real close one, Ann Beauregard, beat out Ollie Spears. And, you know, it's interesting.
That was a shocker.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Where did those votes come from?
Right.
That's
I
what
don't know.
amazes me. I mean, the Demographic, and excuse me if I clear my throat, I was at the game last night, and on the verge of a little cold, but I'll kick that with the seaweed. But anyway, yeah, I mean, the Demographic in Ward 5 has changed such that, I mean, Ollie garnered almost enough votes to beat a very popular Dennis DiNapoli 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And this year, he couldn't beat Beauregard? I mean, come on. Yeah. Who knows who Ann Beauregard is? Besides, I went to school with her. We're in the same homeroom. I mean, nice lady, loves to chat. I think we all know that, the ones who know her. But to beat Ollie, who was very popular in his own right, I don't know where those votes came from. It's mystifying to me.
Yeah, because he came very close to taking out Dennis in the last.
Yeah, and what amazes me, that's been, I think, the third recent recount. When Ollie lost to DiNapoli 2 years ago, they had a recount.
Yeah, he's like the recount king, Ollie.
Yeah, and I think it went from 7 votes to 12 in DiNapoli's favor. This time, I think he lost by 1 vote. They had the recount, it went to 3 votes. And when Bob Sullivan lost to Mike Brady, it was a similar scenario. It went from like
never
5
goes
votes.
the other way,
Yeah,
does
it
it?
never goes the other way.
And you never end up losing any votes. It's always the one who won picks up votes.
You gain
I don't
some
know.
here
It's
and
just,
there.
I don't know, it smells like haddock to me.
As Ron Matter always says, it's not who votes that counts, it's who counts the votes that matters.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, the mayor got reelected by about 1,700 votes.
Yeah, I mean, did you go down Main Street? I came down Main Street on the way here. Looks very nice, you know, and I get to say to myself, now that Mr. Carpenter, yeah, although I didn't support him this time, and I supported him 2 years ago, I thought, you know, that McMillan should be given a shot, but he wasn't. The other people out there didn't feel that way. I think Carpenter I know he works very hard, and I give him a lot of credit for that. And let's see what he does. I mean, another 2 years, he should have had a 4-year term to begin with. I've already expressed to him myself that I'd be willing to help him fight for a 4-year term, maybe not for himself, but for mayors down the road, because he's expressed that same sentiment, that we need 4-year terms, and he's actually excused himself from being part of that new ordinance if it ever got passed. I told him I'd like to have that become a realization, because all of us care just as much about Brockton as he does, let's face facts. He happens to be the mayor, and I think he really cares about Brockton. I still don't agree with the power plant, the way it's being proposed, the desal plant, which I'm sure we'll get to. But I think he's popular, and he's done some good things. I mean, hey, Main Street looks beautiful now at Christmas time. I mean, I was amazed. I'm looking at store windows and things, places that were normally vacant. So some things are changing and taking place. In 2 years isn't a whole long period of time to get things done. So, I mean, he has made some changes, so I can't say anything negative in that respect.
I think a lot of those changes were already on the way from under the Belzotti administration.
Really? You think so?
Well, I know
With the reefs up on the poles?
No, the Trinity project was
Yeah,
underway.
that was a done deal
Right,
under her
and I think
administration.
the expansion of the college campuses were, but Governor Baker,
Oh, that's-
we have a shortage of
that's
funds,
squashed.
they had to.
And the Trinity deal, we know what that's going to become. I'm not sure Carpenter would have signed on to that
Right.
if it was something under his watch.
And
Because
now-
it doesn't look like it's going to
and
be
they're-
anything
They're
special.
supposed to make a two-way street out of Main Street eventually.
Long overdue. That could have been done, or at least started the project within his first term.
Yeah, that was one of his top priorities.
I'm stupefied why it hasn't happened yet. Why we don't have construction going on and get some detours and showing that it's happening. It's not happening.
Right.
And it's got to happen. Otherwise, Brockton's never going to revitalize.
Well, one thing I'm very disappointed with Mr. Carpenter at is one of his campaign promises was to make sweeping changes at City Hall. He let
Right.
one guy go, and it's status quo up there right now.
Bobby was talking about the janitors.
Yeah,
He hired a couple of different janitors in City Hall.
all right, I didn't realize that.
Well, the other thing too.
I
that-
stand corrected.
The other thing that we were disappointed in, I mean, we backed him with BLT
Yeah,
2 years
yeah.
ago, is he vowed to us that he'd keep the tax rates down, which he didn't. He increased taxes by $500,000 last year to cover the lawsuit, legal fees for the power plant. And also, this year, he submitted a budget that calls for a full 2.5%. And I was hoping that he was gonna get out of some of these wasteful spending deals, like the D-cell and a couple others, the Stonehill College deal, even though they voted to settle it, it's still not the deal we were hoping. We brought up interviewing Jack Lally that they're still leaving as a residential hookup instead of a bulk rate where they would pay a lot more money.
Well,
They are
during
giving
the,
some money
See,
in scholarships to students, but
Stonehill doesn't concern me much anymore. At least they've taken that forward. And the only one, if you remember, back a few years ago, that was even close to going after Stonehill was Todd Petty, former counselor. He was the only one with the courage to stand up and demand that we start revisiting this and get it straight and get some of that money back. And
well, some of the councilors have close ties to Stonehill too, so that's,
well, not to mention the city solicitor,
yep.
Right.
Yeah,
Mr.
he's-
Nazarella. I mean, come on.
President, fundraising committee,
Yeah.
Stonehill College.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor Belzotti removed him due to a conflict of interest, and Mayor Coppin also
Yeah.
followed through with that. But I was hoping they installed, I mean, we had Wayne Tatalia on, the former water and sewer superintendent, and he sat with myself, with Mayor Coppin when he was running 2 years ago, and told him the easiest solution would be install a large meter there, measuring all the outflow accurately, and change it from a residential to a bulk rate that Mayor Eunice did. But again, that's only about 250,000 a year we were missing out. So they're making up for lost ground because we're probably out $3 million. But as far as I could see, it's a 22-year contract going out, $1 million more a year, and 2.8 million committed to students in Brockton for scholarships at Stono, which is a start.
Yeah, it's a
but
start.
more, I think, apparent is this D-cell plant. It was amazing. We brought this up in the previous show with newly elected councilor
What's
Jack
Mr.
Riley.
Riley's position on it? I didn't hear that.
He's got an open mind about it.
Open mind. He's open mind on the power plant. He's open mind on the D-cell. So
I don't have an open
think-
mind on it.
No, I think that's
Not at all.
a learning
None of us
curve
mind
for
here.
him. But just to re-up for the people out there, and you know, the amazing thing when I was running for Council Ward 7 a couple of years ago, and as Paul was running, and Councilor at large, and my experience is walking around the neighborhoods, and Bob, you call them businessmen all the time.
Yep.
It's just unbelievable how they're misinformed. People didn't even know about a power plant coming to the city. They didn't know about the D-cell plant. Some of your people thought that's our primary water source.
Yeah, I was
is
going
the
to say, I'll
D-cell plant.
give you a primary example. Just recently, one of my neighbors had stopped to say hello. We had a brief chat, and Aquaria came up. And I asked him what his feelings were about it. He said, well, we can't do anything because that's where our water comes
Right,
from.
and it's
And that's
a
how naive-
secondary source
Yeah,
that
yeah.
the state mandated when we had a drought
Yep.
several years ago.
Yeah, well, that was back in 2002, and they had the option of signing me up. I think it was about $3.1 million then to
Right, so-
WRA.
So we've already expended $45 million. The mayor's got an offer on the table to buy it for $88 million, which is about 6 times more than the
Yeah.
Koreans pay for a 12 million. It's losing money, $1.5 million a year. Brockton has always been their only customer. They haven't been effectively marketing it. And the council has voted to withhold the payments for about 3 months to put pressure on them. But all of a sudden, they had a FinCom meeting the other night, and a full council meeting, they voted to reinstate it.
Yeah, well,
And Councilor Rodriguez was a big opponent of it.
And he wasn't even there.
He wasn't at the meeting.
Well, he was
I'm-
at the FinCom meeting, but he didn't
Right, he
go
didn't
to the
show
last
up on the
one.
vote.
I'm reading these headlines in the paper, and, Mayor Aquaria Water would be a valuable asset for the city, and he likens it to oil that the Beverly Hillbillies struck. Now, that's kind of
Yeah, it is.
funny.
Ah.
I mean,
And the Beverly Hillbillies don't even want it.
Right, what do you got there? One of your props, what is this? It says here, we're not dumb enough to fall for the Aquarius scam, and there's a picture of the Beverly Hillbillies. Jeff Candy. What was the girl's name?
Ellie Mae.
Ellie
Ellie Mae and Jethro.
Jethro.
Yeah,
Right.
she just passed away recently,
Yeah.
Donna Douglas.
And Jethro's father was a famous boxer.
Hey, Uncle Jay, can I be the water commissioner?
Maybe we can play some the Beverly Hillbilly soundtrack here
Yeah.
to emphasize that point.
But you know, the funny part about it, if you remember correctly, 2 years ago during the Belzardi Carpenter debates, one of
Right.
the things he hammered Linda on was the Aquaria thing, and he vowed if he was elected, one of his top priorities was to get out of this Aquaria deal. Now he
Right.
wants to buy the place.
Yeah, they showed that during
Yeah,
the debates,
yeah.
exactly.
He wants to buy it for a king's ransom.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, but one thing that bothers me here, particularly this whole article, I mean, whoever wrote this, who was it that wrote this? Mark LaRoque. I think that's how you say it. LaRocque, LaRoque, right?
LaRouche.
Well, LaRouche, I don't know. Linda
No
LaRouche,
relation
maybe
to
it's his,
Linda
maybe it's his
LaRouche.
kid. But anyway, there's nothing in here that says, oh, they're convinced that Aquaria lived up to their obligation to market the water. Well, in the contract, their obligation to market the water was a minimum of $250,000.
Per year.
Finally, this is out in public. It's taken
Yeah.
me 2 years, and us 2 years, to get this out there in public, okay? But Article 6.4 is the main thing here. But it says right there in Article 6.4, if anybody wants to read it, a minimum of $250,000.
Per year.
Says,
Yeah.
well, it doesn't say per year, but it doesn't say before the third year of operation. The third year of operation is long gone, okay? Now, it doesn't say anywhere in here about any amount of money that they've
No, they haven't
that
spent a
they've
dime.
spent marketing the water. Do any of the councilors really care about the money, the dollar amount?
Unless they're
I'm not
deeply
sure I
involved.
understand where they're convinced. It says nothing here that convinced them of it. What would convince you they've spent $250,000. We should be suing their asses, number one, okay?
Of course,
Let them bring in these so-called people that help market this water and let them perjure themselves
Yeah.
in a court of law, you know,
Well, if you look at the article.
it'll never happen. They'll never bring in these witnesses to perjure
Eastern West
themselves. Never
Bridgewater,
happen.
they said perhaps we'll look at it in the far distant future, so God knows how many,
Yeah,
how many years,
please.
And that's just a maybe.
Right.
I mean, I don't understand the whole thing, and now the council, after fighting the mayor for 2 years, is now just getting ready to bend right over and get bohica'd.
Yep.
You know? It's just amazing.
Right.
You know, the turn of events and the way they've taken. Is it
Here's a
because,
deal they might want.
what's this?
This is a deal for Aquaria.
Buy this, get this free.
Oh, the Brooklyn Bridge.
You get the Brooklyn Bridge
Mr.
free.
Ford is
Yep.
appropriately referring to.
That's
The old
great.
Brooklyn
Brockton could
Bridge.
use the Brooklyn Bridge.
Right. But
Yeah, we'll
but
charge tolls to go over it like Chris
there's a
Christie.
picture of that for the audience right there, comparing the desal with the Brooklyn Bridge as well. A 2-for-1 deal.
Yep.
So getting back to this plant, again, we spent $45 million. The mayor has an offer on the table to buy it for $88 million, and no towns have expressed any interest. We're their only client. It's a big concern if they did effectively market. I think they said they were marketing to the
Sick of talking about it.
Rainham
So
Duck.
what's going to happen is going to happen.
right.
Because nobody
It's
cares. How many
out-
times have
it's
we
out of
talked
our
about it in this
control.
show?
Exactly.
How many times?
Right,
10?
right,
Does
right.
anybody really care in the city?
Yeah.
Well, what happens-
Most people don't even know.
No,
They think
no.
the Aquaria is what you buy at the store.
Right. One observation I've made, and I worked the polls on this past election day, we were helping Tom Siddell in Ward 1, who unfortunately
Let's talk about some
got
candidates.
beat for the second
Get some
time. right.
interesting candidates here.
But what we observed, and Bob was a checker at a poll down on Holly
On the west
Street.
side, yeah.
And I'd say it was a decent turnout this time around compared to other turnouts. I think there was 32% of the people.
This
showed up.
past election?
Yeah, past election, 32%.
I don't think it was 32.
Yeah, it was, 32%. McGarry, Registrar of Voters, had predicted somewhere between, I think, 32 and 38, because we had a special election in the state Senate seat.
Oh, yeah, we were going
Mike
to talk about
Brady
that, Mike
won,
Brady.
right. But I mean, just an observation I made, the demographics of the city is drastically changing. I mean, when I went to high school in 1971, we had, I think, about 150 minorities out of 5,500 students. Now,
Why, with minorities?
well, I know you take exception.
There were that many rich
Yeah,
kids
yeah,
in the high school?
To that term,
The rich kids are the
minority, but-
minorities.
But due to the federal census, what they determine a minority. But anyway, how many
don't care how
people,
they
Bob,
determine a minority,
walked
it's wrong.
into that polling place, that voting place, couldn't speak English and didn't know how to vote? So obviously,
I would say better than 60, 70%
obviously,
of them.
someone, they were registered, some new registrations, and
Yep.
they didn't know how to vote. I mean, this is the ballot, and they went in there and said, what do we do with this? We don't know what to do. We know who we want to vote for.
Why-
Did you have an experience like that?
When I
When
went
you
to
were in
Caffrey,
line?
when I went to Caffrey Towers during the primary to cast my vote, a couple of, I think Haitian older fellows walked in. Couldn't speak English, one of them, and the other one was very broken English. And they had Adius Pierre cards, and want to vote, right? And they're pointing to Adius. And Pierre, they kept saying. And the lady's like, yeah, but do you know how to vote? Where do you live? Pierre. They're asking him where they live. He's going,
Yeah.
Pierre. I thought it was funny.
Well, there's a couple of instances, the pool that I worked at, where a fellow came in, could barely speak English. Somebody else accompanied him and went over to the voting section with him.
Right.
To explain to him, what the heck was going on.
Hey,
Yeah.
I know a couple of years ago, and I'll be very upfront, someone told me that they walked in some people to the voting booth, and they got me 8 votes by showing them the vote for me. I swear to God. I'm not naming any names, but
Yeah. So, again, there weren't that many changes with
The administration.
city
Yeah.
elected officials. However, we do have a new senator, Mike Brady.
yeah.
That started out as a Ward 2 counselor, and then he was a state rep, and when Senator Kennedy passed away after serving about 35 years or more, Mike got the election. It was pretty interesting, actually, because he was running, he's been a longstanding Democrat, a big union supporter, even though he's against the power plant, which is a little paradox because the unions are pro-power plant. But he ran against a very articulate representative on the Republican side, Jeff Deal from Whitman. And again, it's a similar pattern. Representative Deal won the surrounding towns, but they just can't crack Brockton because it's 60% of the voter base.
How is any candidate going to, from East, West Bridgewater, Whitman, how are they going to beat the people in Brockton?
Right.
Okay, like Michelle Du Bois last year when I opposed her for state rep and I lost, I decided I was going to help John Cruz because he more identifies with with my values, what I believe, even though he's a Republican. Okay, he's a conservative Republican. He's a more liberal Republican. I'm a conservative Democrat, so we meet in the middle. He came within 400 or so votes of beating her, but Brockton was the determining factor.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
Right.
So, and the same thing with Jeff Deal. He lost by a large margin. It wasn't that close, but he won every surrounding town but Brockton.
Right.
And I supported Jeff. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I like Mike. I've known him a long time. We've been friendly, done a lot of things together. But the guy, he was part of voting for that automatic gas tax behind all of our backs and sneaking it in on some obscure bill. And Jeff Deal is the one who spearheaded that that movement to repeal that, and it got repealed.
Yeah.
And I just thought for the future and for being physically conservative, he was the best choice. Now, kudos to Mike, and I congratulate Mike. He's earned the right to serve in that capacity because, he's extremely visible, one of the more visible politicians you'll ever find.
Oh, he's very
everywhere.
popular,
Yeah. But does he always do the right thing? I'm not saying that he does. I can't say that. He tends to toe the party line, and as I think everybody knows by now, I'm no party line toer. And I think those days are gone. You have to break from party allegiance at times to do what's right for the people. You can't be just party politics. The days of Tip O'Neill, who Mike obviously kind of emulates, those days are over. Okay, party politics are never going to move this country forward. We have to compromise, and compromise seems to be out the window. I don't know what's going on anymore, particularly in this country.
I think the agendas are drastically changing today. Look, and for instance, the legislature for years, Massachusetts has been behind the 8 ball on freedom of information requests obtaining public records. So Secretary of State Galvin, who's been there forever, the longest-standing politician in the state, was after the legislature to come up to the 21st century on public information requests. And they did pass a bill recently, but they're exempt from it. It's the typical scenario. Do as we say, not as we do. So their records aren't exposed to the public. So we don't know what kind of income they're making elsewhere. And I think, it's not only in the city or state, but federally as well. You see some of these deals with the Congress of voting cap Social Security benefits, but yet they vote themselves pay raises.
Let's squeeze in Donald Trump. This will make it entertaining. What do you think of Donald Trump?
I like the guy. I think he's refreshing, and I've been a Democrat for years. I know Bob is still a Democrat, long-standing, but recently I just changed my party affiliation. My parents were Democrats their whole life, and we grew up in a blue-collar city and middle-class income people, but I changed to unenrolled independents. And now I'm voting for who's the best candidate, regardless of party affiliation. I think that's half the problem in our country. The parties are infighting, battling with one another.
But Trump is taking that in a whole different direction.
And the Republican Party is, I think, kind of set back by his presence.
Because he's not scared to speak his mind. Right. And you know something? He's saying basically what the majority of people in this country are just too scared to admit they're thinking.
But a lot of the things that
let alone come out and verbalize it.
But a lot of things that he's coming out with, he's not going to be able to back them up.
Well, at least he's got the ideas, and he's got the right,
I think he's entertaining.
the right attitude.
I think he's a
Well, he's an
brilliant
entertainer.
We need an
businessman,
entertaining president.
Very
Look at the
successful.
doofus we got now, Jesus.
But I
entertaining.
do think that in the end, when the dust settles, the smoke clears, I think Rubio will get the nomination.
I don't think so. If Trump does one simple thing, and I'm going to try to get this idea to him whatever way I can, I think if he comes out and says, he starts talking about term limits. Everybody keeps talking about term limits. There's a good way to stop this talk about term limits and do it the right way. It has to abolish pensions for all elected officials. Abolish it. No more pensions. Give them a 401k. And the ones that are already in there with a pension, you got to be kind of fair. You got to be kind of nice. Can't just abolish their pensions. So you give them an 8% matching on what they have so far gathered as a pension. You know what I mean? But you abolish pensions, term limits will take care of themselves. Because these people, they're in there as lifers. They're in there playing for the pension. And the sad thing is, the greed is so bad in this country that these people are already wealthy, okay? But they got these outlandish pensions. Congressmen, one term. One term, you got a pension for life of $150,000. Are you nuts? This is crazy.
With health care benefits too when they retire. Plus,
this is insane. You get just what everybody else gets.
That's been going
and their
on for
pay ought to
years,
be reduced to maybe the median income of those people that they're representing.
right. As Harry Truman once said, we have the best Congress that money can buy.
Yep.
And they're all millionaires today. And
Right, and yet they're still bleeding with every nickel they can out of the system.
Not to mention, they're tipped off on a lot of inside financial transactions that you, me, Bob might consider
No.
borderlining
You think?
insider trade information. Where in the investment business, you go to jail.
Oh, yeah.
for,
Look at the
violating that.
hedge fund operators and.
But we got
speculators.
3 minutes left, so I just want to tell the people how significant that is, and we try in the past to rally the troops. December 7th, when the council determines the tax factor, which means, people, how much they're going to go up on your residential taxes and businessmen out there on your business,
Well, you
commercial
can
properties.
speak at that meeting too.
Yeah, so go down and voice your opinion, and once again, you're going to get a tax bill, by the way, people don't realize this, retroactive to July 1st.
the first 2 quarters.
On January 1st, Happy New Year,
Yeah.
you're going to get a new tax increase, and also you're going to get a 35% water rate increase.
Well, one thing
I
the
can't help to
residents-
think it's to fund
Yeah.
this defunct
Oh, of course it is.
diesel plant
Yeah.
that's not working.
Yep.
So
Of
get
course it
ready.
is, yeah.
Mr. Bohica. New tax rounds, water rate increases, and maybe an override, but that'll go out on the referendum. Hopefully, the people, as they usually
One kind
do,
of an ominous thing too, like
No
you
one's
brought up
going to
before.
show up.
Right, exactly.
What you brought up before, the date, December 7th.
December, the bombing of
Yeah,
Pearl
right, yeah,
Harbor,
well-
infamous day.
Well, I caution the residents of Brockton to have a lipo handy. You're going to get torpedoed financially.
Absolutely, absolutely. My grandfather was on one of the ships out there in Honolulu when they were the sneak attack by the Japanese.
Oh,
the
yeah.
bomb. He survived. He lost an eye. He was in a coma for 45 days.
Hey,
but,
if the Japanese didn't attack us, we'd all be speaking German right
So
now.
that's right, we got a minute left, so let's talk about the next show and the transition of the show over to Mr. Bohica, and next show will be a festive crowd and audience, and hopefully we have a guest appearance by Santa coming in. We'll have some pizza and refreshments and talk
How about Brockton
good
Bohica?
things.
How's that for a
Brockton
name?
Bohica, exactly, but any future runs for you, my friend?
Oh, the last of the Mohicans or something
Last of the
like that.
Mohicans?
Oh, I'm not planning on running for anything.
All right.
Running
so,
from some things, but
yeah,
not running for anything.
We're all running for our lives and running for the bus, it seems like. We're scrambling to make ends meet and pay bills, but it's been a good time, and we have a great crew here. The BCA does a great job on public access, so until next time, probably December 17th, right around there, we look forward to seeing you, and everyone, we hope you come down and enjoy the festivities.